You're watching this video and so you realize the importance of schema markup. You understand how it can help you stand out in Google and get your content noticed. The next question is, how do I implement it? Which of the 615 different schema types do I implement? What format do I use? How do I make sure it's working? These are all questions that we'll cover in today's video. We're going to walk through 6 steps to implement schema markup on your site. Hi, I'm Phil Sparks with Guiding Digital. We're going to be bringing you videos in this channel about website best practices. So if you're a developer, a marketer, or small business owner wanting to refine your skills and get your content noticed, this channel is for you. So subscribe below to stay informed about future content. This is the second video on structured data. In our first video, we defined structured data and talked about the benefits of implementing structured data. In this video, we're going to walk through 6 steps to implement structured data. So let's jump right in. The first step is to determine the schema types you want to focus on. If you go to the schema.org site, you will find pages and pages of options. There are a total of 615 different types. So which ones should you focus on? The generic not so helpful answer is the ones that are relevant to your site. But instead of leaving you with that not so helpful advice, let me give you 9 that in my opinion you should consider starting with. All of these won't apply to every site, but if they apply to yours, these will be a good start. The first one that almost every site should include is the organization schema type. This type defines the type of organization your site represents and allows you to give basic information about your business, like your name, description, link to your logo, contact information, and address. There are many subtypes for the organization type, and so you'll want to use the lowest specific subtype that applies to you. Let's say that you have a bakery shop. Let me show you how you would determine the subtype to use. First, go to the schema.org site and click on the schemas link, and then you can either go to the full list of types or they have shortcuts to the most common types. I'm going to use the shortcut. Then scroll down to below the property list. You'll see a list of more specific types. From that list, I'll choose the one that applies. In our case, a bakery is a local business, and so we'll choose that one. Then we'll keep repeating this process until we get to the most specific type possible. For our example of a bakery, we'll choose a food establishment. If you don't see something in the list that applies to you, then just use the current level as your type, in this case, local business. This applies to any level. In some cases, you may not be able to drill down at all, and so just use the organization type. Finishing out our example, we'll drill down and look at the specific types and we see bakery in the list. Just to be sure they don't break down bakery into subtypes, we'll drill down into bakery and we see that there are no other specific types defined, and so bakery is the correct one. The next schema type I would recommend implementing is the website type. The website type can enable the site link search box in the Google search results. Here's an example of the site that has that implemented. You'll notice when you enter the search term in the site link search box, it directs the search directly into the search results on the target site. A few things you need to know about Google's search box feature. The presence of a website type does not automatically qualify you for site link search box feature. To qualify, you must have a site search implemented on your site. Also, your site must have enough authority with Google. Unfortunately, Google doesn't publish guidelines on authority, and so it's hard to give you solid advice on how much authority you'll need to enable site link search box. One other thing to note about the website type, make sure and refer to Google's documentation on site link search box feature. And make sure and note that they use a modified website structured data type instead of the standard schema.org website type. The next type is the product type. If your site is an e-commerce site, then make sure you have implemented the product type correctly. By including this type, you make it possible for Google to display additional information about your products in Google search results and help your products stand out. The next type I would recommend is the aggregate rating type. This type can expose a review snippet in Google search results. The next type is blog posting. Including this type for each blog post can enhance your appearance in Google search results. According to Google, enhanced features can include placement in the top stories carousel, enriched results features such as headline text, and larger than thumbnail images. The next type is FAQ page. This type can be a good quick win to make your search results entry stand out. By adding an FAQ page type to your page, you make it eligible to include the list of frequently asked questions directly within the search results. The other types that I would recommend focusing on if they apply to you are event, recipe, and video. The second step is to review Google's guidelines. Before you dive into the details of the implementation, make sure you review Google's guidelines regarding structured data. You'll want to review their general guidelines and guidelines for the types you choose to target. I'll include a link to their general guidelines in the video description. Here are a few things I'll call out from their guidelines. According to the guidelines, the content must be visible to the user. If you include Schema Markup on your site, the markup needs to describe content already visible to a user viewing your site. For example, if you want to be eligible for the FAQ rich search feature, you need to implement the FAQ schema type, but the content within FAQ schema markup needs to also be available to users viewing your site. The schema markup should be complete. To be eligible for rich search features, you must include all the required properties of the schema type. And the last thing I'll call out is that the schema markup should be placed on the page that it applies to, instead of just putting everything on the home page or putting them on all pages. After you are familiar with Google's guidelines, the next step is choosing a format. Google supports adding schema markup using one of the 3 different formats: microdata, RDFA, and JSON LD. Google's recommended format is JSON LD, and so unless you are using a plugin that is already using one of the other formats, I would recommend following their recommendation. One thing I like about JSON LD is that it provides a nice separation from HTML code, and that fact opens up possibilities when it comes to implementation. We'll talk about one of these possibilities in the next step. The next step is implementing the markup. You have several options. The first option is using a plugin for whatever platform you are using. For example, if your site is a WordPress site, there are multiple plugins that you can install that will take care of the syntax for you. And once configured, it will automatically implement the appropriate schema markup every time you add a new product, blog post, or whatever type of data you're creating. If using a plugin is an option for you, I would definitely recommend taking advantage of this option. If you are using a quality plugin, you won't have to worry about the syntax or worry about forgetting to implement the markup for each new page or item. If a plugin is not an option, then you can manually create the markup. You can then include it on the page by either embedding it within the head or body of the page, or by using a tag manager solution such as Google Tag Manager. I'm not going to go over the details on how to do that in this video, but I'll include a link in the video description if you're interested in that method. For today, I'm going to illustrate manually adding the schema markup for a FAQ page to the head of an HTML page. As a starting point, I've already created a simple HTML page that has 2 FAQ items. Remember that Google's guidelines state that the FAQ items must be visible to a user browsing your page in order for the rich search feature to be enabled. Now let's add the code needed for the FAQ page schema type. I'm going to follow Google's recommendation for the format and use JSON LD. If I wanted, I can manually type out each piece of the markup, but a better way is to use a schema markup generator as a starting point. There are several options available online. I'm going to use one that's provided by technicalseo.com. The first thing we'll do is choose FAQ page as our entity type. You'll notice that it supports many of the recommended types that I mentioned earlier. Then we'll fill in the details for 2 questions. We'll add a question for what is the purpose of the guiding developer's website, and how about one for how much does it cost to use the guiding developer's website. We'll then copy and paste the code it generates into our simple HTML page. And that's it. We now have a completed FAQ page schema markup on our FAQ page. The next step is testing your markup. There are a couple of tools that Google provides for testing your schema markup. The first is the structured data testing tool. Using this tool, you can make sure you've included the correct properties and confirm that you don't have any syntax errors. The tool provides 2 ways of testing the structured data. You can either copy and paste your JSON LD code snippet or provide it a URL for a published page. I would recommend using the code snippet option during your development process before you check it in and publish your page. Then test it again using the URL option after you've published your page. So let's paste in our FAQ page snippet. After we run the test, you'll see that it displays a list of properties and the values for each property that it found, and also the number of errors and warnings. Let's intentionally introduce a few errors to see what it looks like. We'll take the E off of name and the first items to make it an invalid property, and then remove the text property from the last item. Hitting the run button to refresh the test, we now see that it displays 3 errors. That tells us the name of the property is missing from the first item, the required text property is missing from the second, and that it doesn't recognize our incorrectly typed name property in the first item. After we have a successful test, we can then publish our page. Once published, we can run the test one more time using the live URL to confirm that nothing went wrong in the publish process. The second tool that Google provides is the Rich Results Test tool. Just like the structured data testing tool, you can either provide a code snippet or a link to the page. What makes this tool different than the structured data testing tool is that it focuses on Google's rich results features. Let's test out our live page. Using this tool, we can confirm that we've included everything that Google requires to enable the rich search feature. You'll see at the top, it confirms that our FAQ page is eligible. The page also displays the schema type and properties it finds, similar to the structured data testing tool. One nice feature that this tool also includes is a preview of how our page will look in the search results with the FAQ Rich Results feature enabled. The last step is to monitor your implementation. After Google recrawls your site and recognizes that you have added the schema markup item to your site, you can then use the Google Search Console to review the enhancement. It may take up to a few weeks before Google picks up your new enhancement. So we don't have to wait that long. I'm going to show you how to examine the details on an existing logo enhancement that I have. The steps will be the same for FAQ items. To review your enhancements, log into the Google Search Console for your property, and then check for the added enhancement in the enhancements section of the left menu. Then click on the item to go to the detail page. On the enhancement detail page, we can then view any errors or warnings and view the details of valid pages. One thing to note is that the addition of your specific enhancement to your property in Google Search Console does not mean that it's now added to the search results. All this indicates is that Google is aware of its existence and that it's eligible to be displayed in the Google search results. Whether or not that is displayed depends on other criteria that Google is not necessarily transparent about. The amount of time that it takes for your search enhancements to be displayed in the search results will also vary on the type that you're implementing, and in some cases, your site's authority. In today's video, we've gone over the steps of implementing schema markup. Remember, implementing schema markup doesn't have to be a big bang approach. Instead, choose a schema type you want to focus on and implement that one to start seeing the benefits. The question of the day is, what schema types have you implemented on your site? Thanks for watching today. If you found this video useful, give me a like, and make sure and subscribe if you want more content on web best practices. Also, feel free to leave me a comment or question below, and I'll try to respond to each one. Thanks.